Today, we discuss who the top 5 players on the New York Islanders are right now. What does that mean for the team? We'll talk about that and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
Your Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Friday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. I'm Gil Martin. I've been covering the New York Islanders for almost 2 decades, and I wrote the book Ice Wars on the history of the Islanders' rivalry with the Rangers from 1972 to the modern era. So glad you could join us today to talk a little Islanders hockey. And we've got a lot to discuss on today's show. We're going to discuss who the best 5 players are on the Islanders roster right now, and what that basically says about the New York Islanders' expectations for the coming season, where they stand in this Mathew Barzal retool, and a lot more. Plus, little news report out there that the Islanders might be hosting an outdoor game in the near future. We're going to discuss that as well. So lots to discuss on today's show. We got to start, however, with the top 5. And I'll be honest with you, this issue came out because the powers that be at Locked On NHL basically tasked all of us hosts with picking the top 100 players in the NHL. Now, it hasn't been released yet. Still some work to do on that. But the first step in the process of picking the best 100 players in the league was to have each host of the 32 teams in the league submit a list of their best players, somewhere between 3 and 5, 6 in some cases, players who we thought deserved to be considered realistically for that top 100. And I think when I started to think about this, the top 3 Islanders players were easy, and then it got really more difficult. And I'm hoping when the voting is done and calculated that we at least get a few Islanders on this list. Everydayers, Islander fans in general, league-wide, the Islanders do not typically get the respect that maybe sometimes they deserve, or the recognition from the media, from fans. And maybe, just maybe, that gets rectified. I still think it's more likely to improve 2, 3, 4 years down the road, the way this retool is happening. But realistically, who are the best 5 players on the Islanders? And for me, number 1 was the easiest. It's got to be Ilya Sorokin. And we have seen when Sorokin is overused, when Sorokin is hurt, when Sorokin is in a slump, this team struggles a lot more. Now, the backup goalie situation is unsettled at this point. Will Semyon Varlamov be able to play? Is David Rittich or maybe Marcus Hogburn, are they good enough to be a legitimate backup? Look, did Ilya Sorokin have the last 2 seasons? Did he play up to the 2 seasons before that level? No, he didn't. Part of that is because of the team in front of him. Part of that was because of injury. And again, as I mentioned, part of that, I believe, was due to the fact that he was overused. But ultimately, the best player right now on the New York Islanders, and I'm not talking about potential, and I'm not talking about, the best prospect. I'm talking about the best player right now on this team as we're getting ready to open training camp in about a month for the 2025-2026 NHL season. It's got to be Ilya Sorokin. I don't think there's any doubt about that. 2 and 3, to me, were clear, but I wasn't sure exactly which order to put them in. And ultimately, based on the criteria that I set forth, that it's who are the best players right now, that helped me separate 2 from 3. Coming in at 2 and 3, you have to have Mathew Barzal and Bo Horvat. Those are the 2 next players on this team. And then you got to figure out the order. I think, ultimately, Mathew Barzal is maybe the more talented player. Maybe he's the guy who has the skill set that at times when he's on his game makes fans get up in their seats and their mouth opens up like, wow, did you see what this guy just did? But the consistent production belongs to Bo Horvat. And so to me, Bo Horvat will come in second, while Mathew Barzal is going to be my number 3. And you could argue, absolutely argue, that the order should be reversed. And I'll hear you out. But Bo Horvat stayed healthy last year. He's been a consistent 25 to 35 goal scorer with the Islanders. Gave you 28 goals last year without playing with Mathew Barzal, who only played 30 games. So, if you were to ask me a year ago when Barzal was coming off, an 80-point season, maybe the players would have been flip-flopped at 2-3. But right now, with Barzal coming off the injury, only played 30 games, only had 20 points in those 30 games. The fact that Horvat is more of a goal scorer, and goal scorers always get valued more than setup guys, rightfully or wrongfully. I went with Bo Horvat at 2, Mathew Barzal at 3. If Barzal comes back in October, plays the way he was playing 2 years ago and stays healthy and plays consistently, I am more than happy to flip Bo and Barzy. But right now it would be Ilya Sorokin 1, Bo Horvat 2, Mathew Barzal 3. Again, not talking about talent, talking about right now who the best players are on this team as of today. But then it gets harder. It really gets harder to round out the top 5 because this team is unsettled. It doesn't have a lot of players in their prime right now who are driving the engine of this team. I am not including Matthew Schaefer on this list. He's unproven. He may have more potential than anybody on the roster entering training camp, but I don't expect Matthew Schaefer to be on the top pair this year. I don't expect a lot of productivity where I would call him one of the 5 best players on the team this year. 2 years from now, 3 years from now, maybe another story. Not going with him. And then you have to make choices. Who out of the rest of the players who are playing a role right now make the cut? And injuries are a part of it. As I mentioned with Mathew Barzal, Adam Pelech, I can't put him in the top 5 right now. He missed 22 games. He didn't score a goal. His defense wasn't what it was. I couldn't put him that high. I couldn't put Ryan Pollock that high either at this point, as to say they are among the 5 best. So who came out 4 and 5 on my list? We're going to talk about that and a lot more coming up next on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for concert tickets to go on sale, only to lose your spot for a show you've been dying to see. Live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping, and that's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting concert tickets faster and easier than ever, and prices actually drop as it gets closer to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals. Tired of endlessly scrolling to find the best deal? Game Time Zone picks. Pick the best seats in your section for you. Ever wonder what your view will look like before you buy? The app shows you a panoramic seat view, so there are no surprises. Take the guesswork out of buying concert tickets and show tickets with Game Time. Just download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download the Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. So 4 and 5. 4 and 5. It's still up there for grabs. And I think when you hear who I picked at 4 and 5, it's going to say a lot about where this team really is right now. And everydayers, how much I like most of the moves Mathew Darsh made this offseason. But you'll also know that I mentioned that this is a retool, and undoing the damage, the mess that Lou Lamoriello left this organization in, as far as being stuck in the muddy middle is concerned, is going to take time. There aren't other players who are in their prime right now who I would easily put on this list. I think Simon Holmstrom could be on this list in a year or two. He's certainly improved in each of the last couple of years. The arrow is pointing up, but I don't think he's there yet. I don't think he's one of the 5 best players on this team. I don't think Alexander Romanov is quite there yet. He's very good at times, but inconsistent at others. And I think that, I think another year or two, he might be able to get to that level, but he's not there quite yet right now. Those are, 2 guys who came close. Kyle Palmieri couldn't make this list because after the trade of Brock Nelson at the deadline, Palmieri his productivity dried up. And that poor finish to the season kept him out of my top 5. So who did make the cut? 2 veterans who I think are on the downside of their careers right now. And 2 players who may not be here a year from now. They may, but I don't think they should be. Coming in at number 4 for me is the captain, Anders Lee. Led the team in goals with 29. Bounced back after a year or two where his play was clearly declining. It was great to see. I guess the big question in my mind with Anders Lee at the age of 35 is, can he sustain that 29 goal level of play for another year? 29 goals, 54 points. I mean, if you can get 25 and 50 from him, 25 goals, 50 points this year, you're probably, in the right ballpark for his high-end expectations. But again, we're talking as of right now, I have to go with Anders Lee in the number 4 spot. And rounding out my top 5 is J.G. Pageau. Not because he's this elite goal scorer, but what J.G. Pageau gives you is decent offense, 14 goals, 42 points. He was a +4 on a team that didn't have, a lot of plus guys. And his versatility, the little things that Pageau does, winning faceoffs, top faceoff guy in the league last year, killing penalties. The Islanders were bad at it most of the year, although it got a little better late. He can be on the second power play unit. He had 5 points on the power play and 4 points shorthanded last year. He's a good passer. He can play the wing, but he's predominantly a center. He can play any line short term, best on the third line. He could easily drop down to fourth line. He could move up to the second line. I guess in an emergency for a game or two, he could move up to the top line, but that's not where I'd want him to be. But realistically, Pageau is one of those guys who doesn't make a lot of headlines, but does a lot of little things well, where I think coaches, scouts, and teammates will appreciate the contributions of Pageau more than the casual fan. So as of right now, that's my top 5. Ilya Sorokin, Bo Horvat, Mathew Barzal, Anders Lee, J.G. Pageau. That's my top 5. Now, what do we see here? Number 1, no defenseman on this list. Number 2, no player in their mid-20s is on this list. All the players on this list, Sorokin is 30, Horvat 30, Barzy 30, Lee 35, Pageau is 34. These are guys who are in their prime in the case of Sorokin, Horvat, and Barzal, or on the downside of their career. I think it speaks volumes about where this team is and why a retool was necessary. Because the group that you put together under Lou Lamoriello maxed out at barely making the playoffs or barely missing the playoffs. And they're not in a position for most of these guys to get better. Bo and Barzy and Sorokin, they are what they are. I mean, yes, they could have a slightly better season, but, Horvat is not going to become a 50-goal scorer tomorrow, okay? He's going to be that 25 to 35 goal guy, 60, 70 points. That's his game. And it really sort of, to me, underscored why it was necessary to A, move on from Lou Lamoriello, and B, have this retool where you had 3 first-round picks in this year's draft, including first overall. You have 2 first-round picks as of now in 2026, with the possibility of either J.G. Pageau or Anders Lee, or maybe one of the Pelech and Pollock defensemen or Scott Mayfield, some veterans who can come off the cap, who can be traded for more picks or prospects or younger players and speed up the retool. So to me, this top five tells me, A, the ceiling of this team is probably the same. You just make or just miss the playoffs for this year. But B, it tells me why the retool was necessary. And again, there's now much more hope for the future 2, 3, 4 years down the road than there was a year ago. And I'm grateful for that. And we'll see how Mathew Darsh handles the situation. We have got more to discuss on this show. Some hints out there from a reliable source that the Islanders might host an outdoor game in a new location. We're going to talk about that and more next on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. August 26th is officially FanDuel Futures Day, a brand new holiday for football fans who live for bold predictions and preseason hunches. For just 24 hours, FanDuel is giving you deals on NFL season predictions. So whether you're calling your MVP, eyeing a long shot division winner, or ready to crown your Super Bowl champ before week 1 even kicks off, this is your moment. So MVP, does Patrick Mahomes bounce back and reclaim the MVP? That might be my first choice. Or how about the Super Bowl winner? Or maybe you want to make a bet on a division winner. How are the Jets and Giants going to do? Maybe you want to check out their win totals. Visit the FanDuel app today and start planning your futures bets now, because Futures Day is one day and one day only. FanDuel, play your game. So there's been talk about the New York Islanders possibly hosting an outdoor game. And John Collins, the COO of this team, mentioned that in an interview that he would like to see the Islanders host an outdoor game at Belmont Park. Now think about it. We have seen the Islanders play at Yankee Stadium. We have seen them play in the Meadowlands. We have seen baseball stadiums, college football stadiums, pro football stadiums, all used for outdoor games. But we have never, at this point, seen Belmont Park, a horse racing venue, be the host of an outdoor game. And I think this would be great. Now, Collins basically in this interview said, there's always the question of where you can make the biggest impact and get the most people and also be iconic. The NYRA, that's the New York Racing Association, guys who own the raceway would love to see a game there, are great partners to us, and obviously we'd be supportive. There is a lot of room there. For the Belmont Stakes, they can fit 100,000 fans, if I'm not mistaken, in that venue. And I'm not saying the Islanders would sell, Islanders Rangers or Islanders Devils or whoever it's going to be. You may not be able to sell 100,000 seats, but A, it would be a historic and beautiful venue. B, it would be different and original. C, it would literally be across the parking lot from where the Islanders play. I don't think there would be any doubt as to who the home team would be in this kind of a game. So it makes a lot of sense. Now, there is one issue. It's still being kind of fixed up, right? May need a little time. It's certainly not going to be ready this year. But boy, it would make a heck of an impact. And let's be honest about this. For the Islanders owners who have been busy with the mall and the area around UBS Arena, this would be one heck of an advertisement, for that area, for that part of the property. And like I said, it would be original. It would be different. It would be a nice twist for an outdoor game. So I'd be in favor of this. And I'll tie it in with one other thing that everydayers will remember. We talked earlier this year about that the Islanders lost the All-Star game for next season because after Four Nations, the NHL not going there. And it's an Olympic year. If the Islanders are selected to host an outdoor game at Belmont Park, let's say in another year, 2027, January, February 2027, that'd be a pretty cool way to substitute for the 2026 NHL All-Star game, in my opinion. I would also love to see a Four Nations style tournament where the Islanders and UBS Arena might be one of the hosts venues. But boy, an outdoor game, Islanders Rangers, Islanders Devils, Islanders Flyers maybe. I'm all in, and I would love to see it. And I think Belmont Park would add a nice other dimension to that setting. So we'll see. But John Collins mentioning that in his interview, and we'll see whether or not it comes to fruition. I think it will happen. The question is when, and we'll see. We will see. Time now for our Islanders birthday of the day. I forgot to give a clue on this one. It's a goalie who played for all three New York State-based teams in the early 2000s to the mid-2000 teens. I'll give you 3 seconds to guess. Today's Islanders birthday of the day. Today is the 48th birthday of former Islanders goalie Martin Biron, the native of Lac St. Charles, Quebec, 6'2", 186 pounds, first-round pick, 16th overall by the Sabres in 1995. Played 3 games for them that first year of 95-96. Later played for the Flyers and then joined the Islanders for the 2009-2010 season, and then spent the final 4 years of his NHL career with the New York Rangers. So overall, 508 NHL games. He had a career goals against average of 2.61 and a save percentage of 9.10. Had a 9-14-4 record with the Islanders, a 3.27 goals against and an 8.96 save percentage. That team in 2009-2010 struggled for most of that year. One of his better games as an Islander, October 31st, Halloween night, 2009. Islanders hosting the Buffalo Sabres, the former team of Martin Biron. And in this game, obviously, Martin Biron, the goalie for the Islanders. Ryan Miller got the start for the Buffalo Sabres. And this game, well, it was all Islanders on the scoreboard. Jeff Tambellini ended up with a hat trick as the Islanders beat the Sabres 5-0. But the shots on goal, 38 shots for the Sabres, 30 for the Islanders. But Martin Biron stopped all 38 shots to earn the shutout. And the Islanders go on to the 5-0 win. And Marty Biron, I'll tell you, played a good game for the Islanders. And on a team that was struggling with youth and inexperience and a low payroll, he helped that team keep their heads. He was a steadying influence, a very nice guy now in broadcasting. So Martin Biron is our Islanders birthday of the day. Thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen today. For your second listen, check out the Locked On NHL podcast. There is no off season. We're bringing you the daily league-wide stories that matter most with the local coverage you love from Locked On. Find Locked On NHL on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. If you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, send us an email to lockedonislanders@gmail.com. If you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You can also follow the show on X at Locked On Isles. You could follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR vs NYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all year long. It's always great to talk a little Islanders hockey with you anytime. Have a great weekend, everybody. Everydayers, we're back on Monday. We'll have the latest Islanders news, notes, and happenings. So make sure you join us for that. Have a great weekend. Stay safe. And, of course, let's go Islanders.